Oh man, that was super easy. I wasn't expecting that. That went better than I expected. That's super easy, just using this as a third point of contact on my face. I love it. Hey, thanks for tuning in to Twang and Bang. Many of you watching this video certainly recognize this immediately as a KRISS Vector. It's a pistol caliber firearm with a very unique recoil system they call the Super V system. It's got a delayed blowback bolt that sends recoil straight back, an angled linkage right here, sends that energy down into a buffer and spring in this channel right here. The spring compresses, then returns that energy up into the buffer. The angled linkage then sends that energy forward into the bolt, which picks up a fresh round before going into battery. None of this is new information. But what is new information is you can now get this pistol straight from KRISS with the stabilizing brace attached. It's about $150 more MSRP. Well, is it worth the price? And why would you do it in the first place? That is what's coming up next on Twang and Bang. The KRISS Vector seems to be everywhere, largely due to the sci-fi aesthetics born from its Super V recoil system. In case you aren't already familiar with the Vector, it's a pistol caliber firearm available in configurations ranging from select fire submachine guns to carbines to this new pistol outfitted with a stabilizing brace. 9mm, 357 SIG, 40 Smith & Wesson, and even 10mm variants are available in addition to the 45 ACP shown here. All variants share the same Super V recoil system, which is located vertically behind the magwell. It's been tested to a sustained 1,500 rounds per minute rate of fire, so you aren't going to outrun the trigger in this semi-automatic. The 5.5-inch barrel is directly in line with both the grip and what would be the buttstock in the carbine or SPEER variants, but that also means it's directly in line with the anchor of the stabilizing brace. Threaded and unthreaded versions are available, so make sure you specify which one you want when purchasing. The lower barrel position also means the Vector has a very large ejection port, which both reduces the chance of malfunctions as well as providing easier access for inspecting the action and clearing malfunctions. KRISS supplies all Gen 2 Vectors with Magpul MBUS folding sights, but most put a red dot sight on top of the rail like I did with my Aimpoint T1. The selector is bilateral with a very crisp 45-degree throw. I found it very easy to actuate with both my thumb and pointer finger without getting in the way of my shooting grip. The grip itself is hollow with a Magpul MOE removable floor plate, which could be handy for storing batteries or NFA paperwork, such as the Form 1 I'm expecting so I can convert this to an SPR. All other controls are located on the left side towards the front of the pistol, right where your left hand will be if you're shooting the Vector right-handed. I'll cover the controls in greater detail later in the video. All Vectors take Glock-compatible magazines, such as these factory G21 mags modified with an extension to bring capacity to 25 plus rounds. Today I'll be testing the Vector suppressed and unsuppressed with Federal, American Eagle, and SPEER ammunition. Field stripping the Vector is actually pretty easy. It's just push pins. You got a pin there to push out, a pin there to push out. This is of course after you ensure that it's unloaded, and a pin there. You pull them out of the other side. They come all the way out, so you do need to make sure you don't lose them. This one's a little tough. You might need to use one of the other pins to push it on through. There we go. And then you just separate what is actually the firearm. This is the firearm here from the rest of the Vector. One thing to keep in mind, you can get a 9mm cartridge just like this to put into your frame, but this is what you register as an SBR, which I'm going to be doing. It's serialized right there. So you do need to keep in mind, you're not registering this as an SBR and then you could swap out a 9mm cartridge or a 45mm cartridge into this. You would have to register each of them separately as an SBR. To get at the recoil assembly, the bolt, and to get full access to the barrel, you just have one more of these pins to push out here. Could be a little tight, and pull that on out and set it down, and then the recoil assembly pops right out. And you can see how the bolt is articulated in here. You can remove it simply by twisting it and it comes right out. And there you can clean the bolt. You can clean and lube the buffer and the spring. You can clean out the channel in the frame, and you have full clear access to the barrel. So that's how you field strip it. Super easy. Putting it back together is a little trickier, of course, because you have to line up the lugs with the channel, and there are 2 sets of lugs on the bolt, and then this has lugs that line up in the second channel. Once you get that all done, it goes right back together again. Put the pin in place, slide that together, and start putting these pins in, and that's all there is to it. It's just a matter of time and working a few of the stiffer pins, the tighter pins, in place. Free of tools except for what you're going to need to clean it up. So this is super easy, and I'm just using this as a third point of contact on my face. No problems. I'm kind of pressing this against my cheek as I'm pressing out with this hand and pressing in with this hand, and it's making the recoil control super easy. That's it. 25 rounds really does go too fast in a gun like this. It is steamy here in North Carolina. I got really bad sweat stains, I know. This is a stabilizing brace. What that means is it's a product designed to help you stabilize a pistol in this case. It is not a buttstock. ATF ruled in 2015 that if you use a stabilizing brace as a buttstock, then it is a buttstock. And therefore you must have the firearm appropriately registered to use it that way. In this case, you would need to have this pistol Form 1 as an SPEER, which I'm doing. And I'm actually going to swap this out for the folding stock that KRISS makes for it. So don't hold this up against your shoulder as a buttstock. What they don't mean is any incidental contact between the stabilizing brace and your shoulder is unlawful. I'm not using this as a buttstock when I hold the pistol against my chest close to my body. This is incidental. When I'm shooting and I'm using this as cheek rest for a third point of contact, this might touch my shirt. This might actually touch my pec muscle, but I'm not using it as a buttstock. That's not what's unlawful. Unlawful would be to pull this into your shoulder, intentionally use this just as you would a buttstock. That said, why would you get a stabilizing brace on a KRISS pistol? Because you can get this vector, it'll end right here, or you could get this little piece here with a pretty cool sling swivel right here. Why wouldn't you just get that? And it comes down to the 2 different ways that you can shoot it. One is the way I've already been showing you, using it as a third point of contact on your cheek. And as I said before, I'm pushing out with this hand, and I'm pushing this against my cheek with this hand. And that gives me a very, very stable platform. So there is some recoil. This system does not eliminate recoil. It changes it to help counter the porpoising that can happen with a firearm. But when you use something like the stabilizing brace as a third point of contact against your cheek, you are able to stabilize the pistol much better. The second way to use it is not a way that I've seen on video before, but it's the way that the guy that this stabilizing brace was designed for uses it, and it's pretty cool. That leads me to my first bit of advice with this. You want to open the stabilizing brace way up before putting it on your arm. Oh, and it's important to know, you can adjust this for an angle that works best with your forearm. What you want to do is pop it
down onto your forearm. Don't try and slide your forearm through like I did the first time, because it will just rip all the hair off of your forearm. And then you're gonna cinch it down. Not tourniquet tight, but nice and snug. So I'm gonna back up a bit so you get better view. What I've seen in videos is I've seen people take this, and sure, it allows you to do that. But that's not how the guy that this was designed for uses it. Rick Cicero is his name. I had the pleasure of meeting him at SHOT Show 2015 when this was in the news. And he is a wounded warrior. He lost his right arm and his right leg. So imagine me set up lefty, because he puts his left arm in a pistol like this, and then he uses his right prosthetic, which that day was a pincer prosthetic, on the front. He pushes out, and then he holds it at a 45-degree angle, because you can't really do this that well. So don't try to do that. You see so many people, oh, a gun needs to do this. If I'm doing this, I'm a gangster. I'm trying to be a gangster. No, that's actually a very practical method of holding a firearm in this setup. So press out, get your head against your shoulder as kind of turning this into your third point of contact. And that's a really stable way of shooting it. You're going to have some offset because your point of aim, I'm flipping it around, will be up here and your barrel will be down here. But you can compensate with that mentally. It's very easy to do, and I'm going to show you that next.
Obviously, strapping yourself to your pistol is not something easily done in response to an emergency, but it is an extremely effective use of the stabilizing brace. Recoil is greatly mitigated, and the red dot never even moves off the target for me. That said, it does take some practice to find the red dot when raising the pistol into view, which is no different than what I experienced the first time I used the red dot on my Glock. Just have patience and the skill will develop.
That worked beautifully. That really works. That's a really good way of using the stabilizing brace. Way better than this.
A much faster method is what I've shown from the beginning, simply pulling the rear of the stabilizing brace into your cheek, providing a third point of contact that stabilizes the pistol as the brace is intended. Finding the red dot with this method is also very easy, and I had no problems running plate racks at a casual pace.
Though the selector is ambidextrous, the rest of the controls are set up basically for right-handed use. They're right here for use with a left hand in a forward shooting position. This is a pistol, which is why it doesn't come with a vertical foregrip. Do not put a vertical foregrip on there. ATF also says that's a no-no. So you're going to be grabbing it somewhere in here. There's great texture for that. One of the things that I found is I had a tendency to put my palm up here, and when I put pressure here, I was locking the bolt back without it being an empty magazine. And when I slid my hand forward, I was holding the bolt lock open so that the bolt wasn't locking back on an empty magazine, which is certainly not catastrophic. But whatever you do need to be mindful that these controls, while laid out pretty well for using a vertical foregrip, you don't want to be pressing them with your thumb or your palm in a forward shooting position. This is the lever for cocking the bolt. It's actually not that hard to do when the hammer's already cocked, but when you have to cock the hammer and pull the bolt back, you do need to pull a little bit harder than you might think you need to. And it's a little trickier with the pistol configuration than with something with a buttstock. It's certainly doable, but you do need to be mindful that you've got to give it a good yank and you'll be fine. Like most people I know, I really enjoy shooting the KRISS Vector, but for some people, it's an acquired taste. Other people never acquire the taste at all. It does have a very different recoil feel than any other firearm that's out there, and remedial actions that you take to clear malfunctions will be different than any firearm that you own. So if you buy this for self-defense purposes, practice on the range clearing malfunctions. But it's very effective at putting rounds on target, no question. There's one other thing that you need to know about the 45 caliber version in particular. The thread pitch is metric 16:1 left hand. It turns out that fixed barrel 45 caliber firearms have very little support in the silencer industry right now. You'll find booster pistons in 16x1 left hand because that is HK's tilt barrel pistol thread pitch. But you can't just take a booster piston can and thread it right on a fixed barrel. That's going to give you bad juju. You need to replace the spring with the spacer, and that's the appropriate way to run it. Nobody is currently making fixed barrel adapters in 16x1 left hand. I can't find 3-lug mounts in 16x1 left hand anywhere. Hopefully people will step up and start to manufacture that as the KRISS Vector becomes more popular. The other thing is a recommendation that I made to KRISS that they are fully aware of, and that is a complete lack of sling mounts. There are no places to mount a sling in a conventional sense on this pistol. So most people end up using something like this Magpul Picatinny sling loop or a QD cup version of the same thing. You can get a replacement pin. This pin comes out and you put a new pin in that has a sling swivel. That works for running a single point sling. But I told them I'd love to see QD cups front and back, and I think that's something we'll see in future generations of the KRISS Vector. If you want to learn more about this KRISS Vector with the stabilizing brace, be sure to see my full written review on my website. You can see it linked in the video description below, or you could just go to TWANGnBANG.net and see it there. Be sure to follow me on Instagram and Facebook. The link's right here to see what I'm doing in between videos, and be sure to click right here to subscribe so you can catch my next videos on bows, guns, and other cool stuff. I really appreciate you watching Twang and Bang, and I hope to see you next time.